How's everybody doing? Hope you had a good summer. Good to be back here. Start training camp, start a football season. I think you saw the list for the PUP guys. Eric and Andrew, those guys are rehabbing. They'll be back when they're ready to be back. Vic on the NFI, and everybody else ready to go. So excited to be back. Looking forward to a good training camp.
Coach, every year is something new. Just for both of you guys, what excites you guys about this particular team going into training camp?
Yeah, everything is new each year. So like the guys we've brought in, the additions, like the draft picks that we've had, how they've worked, and I like how we competed in the spring. So I'm looking forward to training camp. This is the start of the season. We've got a long way to go. Got a lot of things we got to continue to improve on day by day, with the goal to be ready to go at the start of the season.
Joe, Brian, Crystal Ridge, CBS New York. You guys have made it clear who your Week 1 starter is under center, but how important is the development of Jackson Dart, not just to the offense, but to the franchise in the years to come?
Yeah, I think it's important for all the players to develop. That's what this time of year is for. And then once we're ready to go against Washington, we put the best guys out there we see fit. Russell's had a really good spring. The other quarterbacks have as well. I like that room. I like the direction the room is headed. But for all young players, I know you asked about Jackson, but it's really every young player. Our goal is to develop those guys, and when they're called upon, be ready to go.
What did you see from Jackson in the spring?
He had a good spring. Again, he's a rookie, so there's going to be some mistakes, obviously, and it's good. The makeup of the room allows him to learn from some of his peers, and to echo what Dave just said, I really like the room. So he was in there early, working hard, still learning the offense. It's a lot. You got to know what everybody's doing, but you saw leadership, you saw arm talent, you saw athleticism, and again, he's a rookie. He's got a long way to go, and again, he's got a really good supporting cast in there to help, and we got a really good coaching staff as well. So he's in a good spot right now.
Brian, how do you to follow up on what you said? You have been pretty clear. Russ is QB1. Is QB2 open for grabs? Can anybody else in the room win QB2?
Yeah, look, we're going to go out here. We're going to practice. Guys are going to compete, and the roster will be set when the roster's set. So our goal right now is just to improve each person every day, and we'll take it from there.
How do you plan on handling Jackson though this summer in regards to development? Like, what are your goals for him throughout the summer?
To get better every day.
Will he expect to be on the field fully today?
He does.
Participating fully, no.
Yeah, ready to go.
Holding him back. What do you want to see from him in year 2?
Same thing. Keep improving.
When Tom mentions Malik, where can he specifically improve after what was a pretty dazzling rookie year?
Yeah, look, I think everybody's at different levels. Every player's at a different level, and each person on our football team has different things to improve on. Coaches, players, we all do. Everybody's got a specific plan on things that we need to help them with, and that goes for everybody on the team.
Brian, you obviously have your own plans and ideas and outline for how this camp is going to go. But when you have a quarterback like Russ, who's been around for so long, do you sort of listen to him a little more closely about what's worked for him in the past and what he might want and incorporate that?
Yeah, I think I've covered this a couple times here, Tom, but I understand the question. He's a guy who's done it for a long time. He's got a lot of experiences. He's been in a number of systems. He's played a lot of football. He's seen a lot of things. He's made a lot of adjustments. And I think there's a lot of good give and take in our quarterback room. I think you need to have that. Those are the guys that are playing behind center, and they have to be very comfortable with what we're asking them to do. And you certainly listen to those guys, and all 4 of them. One guy might not like one thing, they might like it all. I think when you're developing offense, you come out here, you practice a lot of different things, and then you hone in on what those guys are doing well, so that you're very good at the things that you're asking them to do. But he's a guy that he's been great in the room. He's got tremendous leadership. You saw what he did, having everybody out there. But he's done this for a long time, and we have a very good working and I'd say personal relationship.
Any example you can give of something that he's brought to you that you might change or add to your repertoire?
Yeah, well, look, there's so many different plays you can run in this league, and you do a lot of research on the guys that you acquire, not just Russ, but other players, but particularly Russ. You watch some old things, you talk about, hey, this is how we've read this play before, this is the the cover 2 side of it that we put in here. Hey, I kind of like it when the back does this relative to that. All right, why do you like that? This is why I like it. The linebacker does this, or I can control him with my eyes. And you're continually learning as a coach. I've done this. This is 25th or 26th training camp with a lot of different players, and I think all the coaches, I want them to do that with their players too. They're the ones out there on the field playing. We have to put a good plan together, and then we have to work together to try to execute that plan.
Brian, when you come into when you plan for training camp, I'm sure keeping the players healthy is at or near the top of your priority. Getting preparing them and keeping them healthy. We've already seen some teams start and some guys go down already. So how do you juggle? I got to get them ready to play, but I want this roster to be healthy at the start of the year. I mean, that's kind of the goal every year, isn't it?
Well, it's football, so there's going to be injuries. There's injuries every year. I think you rely on your sporting cast, our trainers, our nutritionists, who we hired this past season, who's done a fabulous job. Matt Frax, you talked to the team this morning. You try to educate them on the things that you can educate them on: hydration, lifting, stretching, prehab work, what they do in a hot tub, the cold tub, the training staff, and then you go out there and play. And there's going to be injuries. You wish there wasn't, but there is. And then you make sure that people behind the people that get injured are ready to go.
Joe, how do you attack this from your position, training camp as a GM, not just here, but obviously what goes on elsewhere?
Yeah, once the preseason starts and there's other games, again, there's going to be roughly 1,200 to 1,300 players cut that Labor Day weekend. So pro staff does a fabulous job, led by Chris Rossetti, Brandon Brown, Tim McDonald, Dennis Hickey, and they do a great job canvassing the entire league. And we divvy up the league, and they're in charge of teams as if they're the GMs of the team. So whether it's trade candidates, whether it's cap casualties, injuries that you're talking about, we will track all that stuff. And from a roster procurement standpoint, we still have we're third in the claiming order. So this will be a big preseason for us in terms of when players are released during that time. If the first 2 teams don't claim a player, now it comes to us, and we've had some success, claiming some players since we've been here. We call it the second draft, that time of year. So it's a busy time of year. It's a lot of players to work through, a lot of film to watch. So we'll evaluate that, and then as Dave was just talking about, there are injuries, and the roster may look different a week from now just because of injuries. And we made a transaction yesterday with bringing in Kayvon Wallace. So there are injuries. You're trying to keep everybody fresh, so you need everybody out there on the field to take the reps. So we've got an emergency list that's ready to go if a player gets hurt at a certain position. We have workouts during this time, so it's a busy time of year, but it's fun, it's great. We're glad to be back to work and excited for the season.
Ryan, is there any guy that you think can contribute immediately? What do you want to see in his first NFL training camp going through his rookie season?
Yeah, know what to do, then go out there and do it at a high level. He has a skill set. Joe did a great job of selecting him in the draft. He's been good since he's been here. Again, we got a couple days here without pads, but once the pads come out, I want him to play fast. I want him to play aggressive, physical, no fear mentality, get after the quarterback, stop the run, everything that's required for him at his position.
Is there any concern with Andrew for the opener at all, or are you under the impression that this pup list period is going to be a quick one?
Yeah, he should be ready for the opener. Again, things change. You can never be 100%, but we're going to take it day by day with him. When he's ready, he'll be out there. But we anticipate him to be ready for the opener.
Joe, what we've seen so far from Dart about his disposition, the way he carries himself, suggests to you that he'll be a good fit as a leader for this organization and in the market.
Yeah, we'll see how that transpires. He's a young kid. He's only been here for a couple months, but watching and talking to people down at Ole Miss, we went to school, and the leadership that he showed down there, and what we've seen just personality-wise from him here. But that can be tough at first. We've been around some quarterbacks when you come in as a 21, 22-year-old, and now it's tough to go lead grown men that have been in the league for a long time. So it'll happen organically, but we like the personality traits, the character traits, the leadership traits that he possessed at Ole Miss, and from what we've seen so far.
Joe, it takes time to build depth on a roster. we all will concentrate on the starters and all that. But where do you think it is now? Do you think the team is short in any place? But the fact that, as Brian said, some guys go down, unfortunately, this and that. That there's fortification in the back. The second guys, the third guys. Where do you think you are with the depth?
We'll see, Paul. Again, just going into day one, there's some young guys that we've just seen in shorts and T-shirts. So once the pads come on, interior, O-line, D-line, we'll get a chance to see, how those guys do when the pads come on. So we feel good about where the roster is right now with the 91 players that we have with the international exemption. So, now is when the competition really begins over the next few weeks in training camp. And, I'm looking forward to that. But, yeah, we like the 91 we have now. We're always going to be looking, if there's transactions or somebody's cuts or trades, whatever it is, we're always going to look to do what's best for the team.
Do you feel like you've built a playoff team, like a playoff caliber team for year 4?
Yeah, we're just starting camp today. I understand the question, but the expectation is we're going to be a competitive team, a competitive roster, and again, all that starts today.
You always evaluate your process, but the last 2 years, you guys haven't started well.
Yeah.
Is there anything in the process maybe that you're thinking about changing in hopes of changing that?
Yeah, we've changed on a yearly basis. And we think we have a process set in place with the players that we have right now to be ready to go. We're going to have to be, but it's the first day, as Joe just mentioned. We have a long, 30 days or whatever it is. We play preseason game in 15 days, I think. But our focus is going to be on us and the improvements that we need to make. And like I said, I like the additions that we've added to our football team, the personalities, competitiveness of these players, some of which played in the league at a high level, and the young players that we've added. So, again, it takes time to build a team here. This is the time to do it in training camp. Learn from mistakes, grow each day, and continue to improve, all the way up until the start of the season.
In your minds, can any of the other quarterbacks challenge Russell for the week 1 starting job, or is that door closed? That's his?
Yeah, like I said, these guys will be out here competing, but Russ is our starter.
For both of you guys, coming here, when you came here originally, it was always about, a united front, the two of you together. I'm just curious, how has your working relationship developed over time? Like, how much, Joe, have you learned about Dave's and what you guys have gone through? And then maybe vice versa, Dave's, what have you learned about Joe and his team and what he has to do for you guys?
Yeah, there's a lot that goes on to running an operation. There's usually, we laugh about it all the time, 10 things that come up between 6 in the morning and 9, like it did today. Different things, organizationally, players, from a rehab standpoint, and then you work together. Look, we got a great personal relationship. Spend a lot of time together outside the building, and a great working relationship. And there's things you learn every year. Maybe I shouldn't have handled it this way. What do you see from your end, outside looking in? And he asked the same thing, and that's how you try to get better. You make mistakes. You communicate, try to get through the things you need to get through and improve on them. Ask for advice, get advice. But the good thing is, we do a lot of things, like I said, outside the building as well. I think that helps. I think it helps a team when players do things outside the building, so that when you hit rocky times or tough times or a decision that needs to be made, that you can sit there and talk about it. And then, again, don't be disagreeable. You could disagree, but you're not going to be disagreeable all the time. Have good discussions. Do what's best for the team, and that's why I enjoy working with Joe.
Joe, when you're balancing,
yeah, I would say that the relationship outside the building, inside the building, and the communication and the respect that we have for each other. Both have been doing it for a long time, and the ability to have hard, honest conversations together with each other behind a closed door, and evaluate decisions, whether it's things we did in game or draft picks or players that walked out, came in, traded for, whatever we did. We're always evaluating our decisions, but those hard, honest conversations, the amount of respect that we have for one another, helps this thing work.
And I think it sucks when you're going through it, but the tough times help. We've certainly had a few tough times, but that's when you grow closer too. That's when you're able to have those honest conversations, and you never want to go through those tough times. Shit, you wish you were, wish you never lost a game. You wish you were where you wanted to be at the end of every season, but that hasn't been the case. But those help you in the long run.
When you're, as a coach, when you're assessing the quarterback position, how do you balance a situation where you have a veteran who you know what you're going to get from him, you know what he can do in the league, versus a young guy who, when he shows he's ready, maybe he's not as savvy as a veteran but has more upside? Like, how do you kind of balance those two?
Well, first, it's a little bit different because even though we have some quarterbacks that have been in the league, they're in a new system. So the verbiage, the cadence, the checks, the signals, all the things that you need to do to play at a high level at that position, we're still going through that with these guys. But you evaluate the players, I would say the same, Connor, but you also understand, at this time of year, it's easy to look at veteran players, not just at the quarterback position, and guys that have had a lot of experience in the league and have been through things, and you kind of know, all right, they got it. They're not going to make a lot of mistakes. You trust them as a coach, versus some young players who, are pretty skillful. Maybe they're a little quicker, maybe they're a little faster, but there's 2 or 3 mistakes a day. What you evaluate, Connor, is are you error repeater? You make the same mistake the next day and then the next day, and if that's the case, it's hard to put a player out there that does that. If they're learning from their mistakes, which all players are going to learn from them, but these young players, they got to learn quick. Like I said, this time of year, OTAs are great. We got a lot accomplished. I think we did a really good job as a staff and as players out there, but time's short. You don't have a lot of it before the first game, and we have to know what our vision is leading up to September here. So you evaluate them, you give them ample opportunity. We'll do another period at the end, which is a young player period where they get a few more reps, but they gotta go, and they gotta learn from the mistakes that they make, and they don't make them the next time. You keep developing them. They keep making the same one over and over. It's hard to put them out there.
Joe, from your perspective, what will determine when Jackson is ready to play? How will you know?
That's probably more of a question for him. Yeah, I'm not gonna. Yeah, I'll lean on him for that. Again, like he just talked about error repeaters. Like I can watch practice and you guys can watch it, and then you get back and you, even after games, and I get in there with Dave's on a Monday morning or after practice, and he was supposed to run this, or that wasn't on Jackson. So I'm not in the meetings every day, so I lean on those guys in our personnel meetings, and these guys have been doing it a long time. We've got a really good offensive staff, and when they feel he's ready, the time's right, or the circumstances right, then we'll have those conversations then.
Obviously, Gus is the starter, though.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. Through the spring, how has Jackson been with those errors? Is he a repeater? Has he been
he's done good. Yeah, I said that, I think the last day I was here. He had a good spring, and we need to build. Look, when you go away for a month, you forget things too. So we're not starting over, but yesterday we had an hour and a half, 45-minute meeting. We didn't have a meeting before this practice, so we're going out there and we're going right away. So we'll see how these guys do every day. But Jackson's a guy that puts some time in. He's got the right qualities, as Joe mentioned. He'll continue to get better day by day, and that's what we're going to ask of him.
Joe, obviously Russ is a starter. I'm wondering how you generally feel about sort of, for lack of a better term, redshirting a quarterback or a first-round pick and sort of having them sit the majority or most of the year.
Yeah, going through the process, we have Mike Kafka on the roster, or on the staff, obviously, as our offensive coordinator. He was in Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes. I think he played one game at the end of the year, so we've seen that. Our plan in Buffalo was for Josh to probably not play much his first year, but the way it worked out, halftime of the first game, we're getting blown out by Baltimore. We put him in, and he played the rest of the year. So, I think there's some real benefits from sitting and learning, specifically from some of the guys in the room that have the experience that they have. But if the coaching staff at some point feels it's right and he's ready, then I'll leave that up to them.
What have you had your eyes on or expecting to stand out during this training camp?
Yeah, this is a good time for these rookies. They've had an OTA, a bunch of them, but now we really get to see them once the pads come on in the preseason games and how they're developing and how they can improve each day. And then, those preseason games are important when you see live action where you can actually tackle and hit the quarterback and do all those type of things. So, again, I've said this before. I think Joe and the staff did a great job with the draft. Thought that last year, like the young guys that we have. And now it's, they have to go out there and do it, though. It's not going to be handed to them. They got to go out there and they got to perform at a high level with great discipline and attention to detail and a team-first attitude and tremendous work ethic, and that goes for all the players.
Scatterbo and Darius Alexander a lot in the spring. Are they full go when we get here?
Ready to go.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Pat. Hanlon.